What if I told you that your intelligence, your actual IQ, is dropping a little bit every single day and you don't even realize it? No, this isn't genetics. This is your daily habits. Small, seemingly harmless behaviors that feel so normal, you've never once stopped to question them. If you recognize even 3 of these 7 behaviors in yourself, this video could become the turning point of your life. Society has sold you a lie. The lie that intelligence is fixed, that you're born smart or average, and that's the end of the story. This assumption is completely false, and it's the exact reason so many people stay permanently stuck at average. Here's the truth. Your brain works like a muscle. It grows and it shrinks, depending entirely on what you feed it every single day. Today, we're exposing the 7 daily behaviors that are quietly, psychologically, draining your cognitive ability. Some of these are so common. You're probably doing one right now, and one of them might make you a little uncomfortable. Let's begin. The first trait is constant validation seeking. People who need approval for every small decision. Does this look right? What do you think? Never actually build the muscle of independent problem solving. Every time they outsource a decision, they skip the exact mental rep that would have made them sharper. However, people who make decisions on their own, even when they get it wrong sometimes, force their prefrontal cortex into constant active reasoning. That repetition compounds. Over months, it becomes the difference between someone who thinks for themselves and someone who waits to be told what to think. Picture 2 students working on the same assignment. One checks in with the teacher before every single step, needing confirmation before moving forward. The other works through it independently, makes mistakes, corrects them, learns from friction. A few months later, the difference isn't subtle. The second student starts making faster, sharper, more confident decisions across every area of life, not just schoolwork. A university study on decision-making suggests that people who constantly seek external validation show reduced activity in the brain regions responsible for independent judgment. And when a region of the brain isn't being used, it doesn't stay dormant. It weakens. The second trait is multitasking as a badge of honor. Most people treat multitasking like a productivity flex. Doing 5 things at once feels impressive. But here's the undeniable reality. Multitasking doesn't multiply your output. It fractures your focus, and it does lasting damage to your ability to concentrate deeply on anything. However, when you commit to one task at a time with full, deep focus, your brain properly encodes and stores that information. Depth beats speed every time. Think about this scenario. You're on an important call, scrolling your phone at the same time, half typing an email in another tab. What happens? All 3 tasks come out worse than if you'd done them one at a time. Your brain wasn't built to split its attention like a browser with too many tabs open. Something always suffers. Research on cognitive load consistently shows that chronic multitaskers demonstrate noticeably weaker information retention compared to people who train themselves to single task with full attention. The third trait is avoiding discomfort at every cost. Easy content, easy conversations, easy answers. Whatever requires the least effort. This constant pursuit of comfort makes your growth fragile, because growth, by definition, requires friction. However, when you deliberately choose mentally challenging material, difficult books, complex puzzles, hard conversations you'd rather avoid, your brain physically builds new neural connections in response. Difficulty isn't the enemy of growth. It's the mechanism of it. Picture 2 friends. One consumes only entertainment, content designed to require 0 effort. The other deliberately picks material that feels uncomfortable, that stretches their thinking. By the end of the year, the gap between them is undeniable, not just in knowledge, but in how they process everything else in life. In cognitive science, this is called desirable difficulty. The principle that the more discomfort you're willing to sit with, the more growth you unlock on the other side. If you've made it this far, That already tells me something. You're in the minority of people who take their own growth seriously. So here's a small favor. Hit that like button. It sounds small, but there's a reason it matters. When you publicly commit to an action, even something this simple, your brain automatically starts aligning itself with what it just supported. Psychologists call this the commitment consistency effect. You're not just liking a video, you're reinforcing an identity. And if you want content like this showing up in your feed regularly, content designed to make you sharper, not dumber, subscribe. That choice is entirely yours now. Let's move on to the next set of behaviors. The fourth trait is refusing to admit you're wrong. This is, without question, the most dangerous trait on this list. To protect the ego, people will ignore facts sitting right in front of them. They'll twist logic, deflect blame, do anything except say 4 simple words. I was wrong. However, people who can admit their mistakes without flinching keep their brains flexible enough to accept new data. And that flexibility is what separates people who keep growing from people who plateau by 30 and never move again. Picture this: a meeting at work. Someone points out a mistake you made. One person gets defensive, deflects, gets irritated. Another simply says, "You're right, let me fix that." Which one do you think grows faster, professionally and mentally? This connects directly to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The less someone actually knows, the more overconfident they tend to be. And the more overconfidence dominates, the less room there is left for real growth. The fifth trait is doom scrolling before sleep. Mindlessly scrolling right before bed doesn't just waste time. It robs your brain of the deep rest it desperately needs to actually process everything you experienced that day. However, people who put their phone away before sleep and spend even a few quiet minutes reflecting show noticeably better memory consolidation. Reflection is the brain's way of filing the day away properly, and scrolling doesn't allow that process to even begin. Here's a simple comparison. People who scroll before bed tend to wake up mentally foggy, sluggish, unfocused. People who set the phone aside and simply sit with their thoughts for 10 quiet minutes wake up with noticeably sharper clarity the next day. Same 24 hours, completely different mental output. Sleep and memory research consistently shows that without deep, uninterrupted sleep, your brain simply cannot file away the day's information properly. And over time, that failure compounds. The sixth trait is surrounding yourself with only agreement. People who only keep others around who agree with everything they say slowly turn their own thinking into an echo chamber. No friction, no challenge, no growth. However, people who deliberately keep people in their life who disagree with them, respectfully but genuinely, end up with sharper reasoning because they are constantly forced to defend and refine their own position. Picture 2 groups, one where everyone nods along with everyone else, another where healthy debate is the norm, where disagreement is welcomed instead of avoided. The second group, without fail, ends up making better decisions because their thinking has actually been tested. This idea connects closely to Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Real cognitive growth comes from conflict and challenge, not from comfort and agreement. The seventh and most underrated trait is negative self-talk. I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. These are sentences you say to yourself, quietly, repeatedly, and your brain doesn't just hear them. It starts to believe them, literally. However, people who talk to themselves constructively, the way a good coach talks to their best player, see measurable improvements in both confidence and actual performance. This is the exact principle behind cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Your thoughts don't just reflect your reality. Over time, they build it. So now you know. Which of these 7 behaviors has quietly been draining you, day after day? Remember this: intelligence isn't a fixed number. It's a daily choice. Every single day, you have 2 paths in front of you. Grow your brain or slowly let it drain. Starting today, that choice is entirely yours. If you want to become the version of yourself that gets a little sharper, a little stronger, a little more unstoppable every single day, subscribe and be part of this journey. This video is based on general behavioral patterns and popular psychology concepts, not clinical or scientifically proven claims. Please treat it as entertainment and self-reflection, not medical or scientific advice.